do everything for you turnkey. And the same is true of movies. As long as you're giving people professional product, then you can self-produce and self-distribute your own films.
Jonathan, you're another one of these guys who has a lot of following on Instagram and things like that. Would you talk to us a little bit about that, but also shadow banning and the state of affairs as far as it comes to the big tech companies trying to squash conservative voices?
Well, I guess with me, the way I got my followers was before I became a citizen or even an influencer, I was a professional skateboarder. I came from Los Angeles, California, and worked for awesome companies. And the moment I announced my support for the president, 3 out of my 4 companies dropped. So when I got into what I'm doing of journalism and documenting things that the news wouldn't touch, in a way I don't believe in fake news, I believe in propaganda. That's all it is. When you have the news has an agenda to squash everything. And when shadow banning, it started occurring the more I started talking about things that no one wanted to talk about, even certain objects that he brought up, like Pizzagate or anything like that, to say like, there's odd things that are happening. Why is no one talking about this? In a way, I think citizen journalism is putting the teeth back in real reporting, where no one wants to touch it. Well, it's going to hurt someone's feelings. That's called breaking news. You're supposed to break the false reality of what's going on. You're supposed to expose the truth.
That's great. There you go. Now, of course, you all know about virality and how to, and you all have your sort of different mechanisms you guys use to do that. I wanted to ask, one of the most viral accounts on the conservative spectrum on Instagram, how do you create that groundswell, whether it's memes or whether it's just simple statements or news stories that come out? And what would you say to the crowd about maintaining that, given the fact that the news cycle is a 24-hour, 7-a-day news cycle? It's almost like the meme cycle has to be the same, right?
You're 100% correct, Raheem. It all boils down to the truth. So we see all these fake news narratives on every news station out there, all right? What do? We break that, as everybody said. But why is the truth so important? It's because they're yearning for it. They need it. They haven't heard anything truthful, and in the back of your mind, when you hear something, you're like, I don't know if that's true, coming from Don Lemon or whoever might be talking about it. But I have a statement that I've always said. It's called, the truth always wins. Why is that? Because good people want the truth. They don't want lies.
Fleccas, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the dangers of what you do in the field. Citizen journalism can be a little bit fraught out there because people are much more hostile. They see it as a much more partisan thing. They see it as something that they want to accost and in some cases assault, as I'm sure a lot of you saw just a couple of weeks ago with the assault of Andy Ngo, a citizen journalist, a Wall Street Journal contributor, a Quillette contributor, somebody who's been doing this for years. Fleccas, tell us a little bit about what you do and what you might run into on the streets doing this and how you get around that.
Absolutely. So we do face a lot of potential violence, assaults, doxing as well. And it's unfortunate, and it's only getting worse because the media on the left is not reporting it, and on the right it's going viral. So on the right, we're getting really mad and it's bubbling over and we're getting upset about it, while the left isn't talking about it. So it's very frustrating, and it leads to more hostile engagements going forward. And the reason I started my channel, similar to what some other people were saying before, was just because the truth wasn't getting out there, like Grant was saying. And the people are tired of the narratives that the mainstream media are basically willing to die by. The narrative that Donald Trump is a Nazi, he's going to put us in concentration camps and blow up the world, that narrative doesn't work. That narrative doesn't have longevity. But they're willing to sell that out just for some short-term clicks. And every time they're exposed in their lies, their audience gets smaller and smaller, and it forces them to stretch the truth even more and more. So I kind of see my role being in this whole movement, an underproduced truth. Like, you don't have to get a billion-dollar corporation, Anderson Cooper, to tell you every day of the week what's really going on. You can go out there with your phone and some friends and shoot this truth yourself. So that's kind of been my goal, and my goal has really been to combat the framing. I think the framing of these issues is a really big problem we're facing on the right. Because we are the silent majority, because we don't want to get called racist, sexist, homophobic, and all these other isms, it kind of allows us to forfeit the narrative. So my goal is to make people not afraid of the mob, for people not to be afraid of the progressives, stand up and speak out, and when you do, we're a lot stronger as a whole. Yeah, that's my lady right there.
It's quite hard for me to hear you down this end, so forgive me if I repeat anything that Fleccas just said. I wanted to add the benefit that we have over the traditional media as well, which is the international way that we do things. It's, you know, the globalists are not very actually global. They segment their news into CNN International and BBC America and all this stuff. When we do it, it crosses borders, and it crosses borders in the sort of way it was intended to, right? The virality, it retains the originality of it. And I think that's very important for a coherent message that we're putting out. And I want to throw this question open to anybody who's keen to answer it. In terms of developing a coherent message, a lot of us are 1, 2, 3 people operations. How do you communicate with each other? Is there much inter-influencer communication? I always say there could be more. And how do you decide which narratives to run with? Is there a central decision in any way? Or do you just all, as Trump said at the social media summit, the crap you guys come out with, right? Do you just decide, I'm going to think of some crazy crap and we'll see what works? Anybody fancy that one? Go ahead.
So we have CNN, MSNBC, whatever these companies are. They spend millions and millions and millions of dollars funding one project, one narrative, one total lie, in my opinion. And all it takes from us is about 5 minutes of just a truthful meme. If y'all are familiar with memes, or just truthful content that we've made, I kid you not, what, 5-10 minutes? It doesn't take long. And we just killed a $1 million project. And they keep pushing it, and all the kids that see it, that's what we're trying to go after, is the young generation. So that's all it takes.
Anything to add on that, Fleckus, or Mike, or Jonathan, Mitch, Brian? All of you.
Well, yeah, it doesn't take like he said it right. It doesn't take a long time to find the real clip where they're lying. Or like with Kavanaugh, for example, they would just lie about what he said, and then you find the real clip. The bigger trend I've noticed, though, that the left can't handle is right now, this is the biggest cultural shift, is now being media matters for these left-wing people, and they don't know what to do. Like Ilhan Omar is saying, oh, something happened to some people. And then, well, here's that clip, the kind of scrutiny that if you're a conservative, you're under, where they'll go through your entire catalog of every podcast you ever did and even make fake edits of you and jump cuts. That was never done to the left before. Traditional media, even conservatives, totally blew that. And now that the left is dealing with that level of scrutiny, they're all freaking out. They've never dealt with it before.
Does anyone care to opine on why we find ourselves having to do this as well at the moment? I mean, why did the news networks get to this point? Why are CNN at all-time lows in their ratings? What is it between them in their ivory towers in Columbus Circle, New York, or outside Union Station in DC? What is it about them that they fundamentally just don't understand what's going on in places like this?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's crazy, right? Like, these people, in any other business, if they were losing those kind of numbers or that kind of money, they would self-correct, and they have an opportunity to self-correct every single day, it seems like. Like, even this week with CNN and MSNBC misreporting blatantly on what happened at the hearings, at the Mueller hearings. So, I mean, it's so crazy, and it just... To me, I think there's sort of an urge to get the truth out, and when one of these guys that has a big account, they share something that is truthful, and it moves faster than the news. So a lot of times I'll see clips that we all know about that have circulated because all of a sudden it's not just one thing from Grant or one thing from Fleckus. It's all of a sudden it spreads like wildfire. People rip it, they share it, they share the information, and so all of a sudden it's not just about the 1 million followers that you reach. It's about the spider web effect. And so the news moves so quickly, and it's funny seeing like clips of Ilhan Omar that are pulled out from a while ago, and all of a sudden we know about it, and next thing you know, a few days later it's hitting Fox News. So, that really speaks to the power of what it is that these guys and myself do.
How do you guys deal with being called not real journalists? The media says these aren't real journalists, they're not doing real journalistic work. What do you have to say in response to that? How do you deal with them in person? There was this incident of Dr. Sebastian Gorka, who's the only guy that has a better accent than I do. Dr. Sebastian Gorka, who got into this tete-a-tete with Brian Karam from Playboy/CNN, neither of which I read for the articles. In the White House Rose Garden the other day, and he has hatred for you guys. He's pointing and shouting at you. you're not real journalists as far as they're concerned. What do you have to say back to these guys?
I would say I don't want to be considered a real journalist because the real journalists aren't even doing real news. And being called a fake journalist because I'm actually speaking the truth, I'd rather have that. We're having the guy over at the... Thank you. Like the guy yelling at Joy Villa saying like, oh, you aren't a real journalist. You work for Playboy. I don't think anyone looks at Playboy to know political analysis at all whatsoever. So, not speaking from experience, but when it comes to that situation, it was CNN. Like we're seeing this multi-million or billion-dollar media corporation making these news, and you have Fleckus, who has a spoon as a mic, pretty much getting the truth out there in less than like a day. It's because pretty much gossip. Winston Churchill said that it takes 20 years to build a reputation, but 20 seconds to destroy one. And every single day, the fake news and media corporations are destroying their own reputation without our help. We're just magnifying it.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah, I just don't care. I just don't even care. It's one of those things where if I were walking down the street and somebody said they didn't like me, that would be insignificant. And that's where the media is. Their opinion of me is insignificant.
And last but not least, look at the numbers. We crush mainstream media numbers. Like if we're not real journalists, then what are they? I mean, really and truly.
Does anybody remember the number that President Trump threw out at the social media summit of the sheer number of people you guys reach all together? It was absolutely immense. Does anybody have that on top of their head?
Off the number of all the combined accounts, it was over It was half a billion, 500 million.
500 million people reach with all these guys. Brian, I wanted to ask you, how do you deal with the press here? What's your experience been like? What's the difference when you deal with what I think of more honest actors, like the people on this stage, and dishonest actors? Do you see it with them? Do they show you that they're going to try and screw you in their mainstream reporting? Or do you find that out too late?
The media has been ruthless against me and We Build a Wall, and they're not shy. Like they come at me and they'll email me and basically lay it out on the table, and we know exactly where they're going, and it's all fake. And I can't believe some of these networks will run stuff that's just blatantly fake. Like I stole the GoFundMe money and bought a jet and bought a yacht, and I'm out in like the Bahamas somewhere. I mean,
right, but we're going out on the yacht after this, right?
Yeah,
okay.
They ran a story like that, and it's so bizarre that they can get away with stuff that's frankly should be illegal.
But what do you do? What's your feedback mechanism to that? I mean, it's such a...
The way I look... Yeah, I mean...
Go ahead.
I've been blown up, you know. I lost my legs, and there's nothing that they can really do to me that's going to knock me off my rocker. I'm just like, all right, these guys are back at it again. It's all bull crap. It's all crap. It's all fake. It doesn't bother me. I'm angry about it for like a second, thinking like, how can they get away with doing this? It's not honest journalism. It's from people who should be credible networks. And I mean, I guess I'm a different breed because I've been blown up, but I just roll it off my shoulder, and I keep pushing forward because the mission is not really about me. It's not their attacks on me. The mission's about securing the border with We Build the Wall, and we just stay focused as a team. Everyone, We Build the Wall, just stays focused on this. Like when they said we weren't ever going to build the wall, all these liberal networks were saying, "Oh, it's not happening. They're not building the wall." But literally, here we are. They didn't know it, but we're building the wall basically behind their backs, and they didn't even know it.
Has CNN sent anyone down?
Surprisingly, CNN has been very good to us, but you know who hasn't is the conservative news.
Oh,
the big one too. Not to mention names, but they haven't been here.
Well, we've got OAN here. We like OAN,
has
right?
been incredible.
And to amplify his point, I remember 9 months ago, Ryan agreed to an interview with me, and it was quite critical. I said, people are saying you're this, people are saying you're that. He answered every question. And then 3 months later, these articles started surfacing going, he won't be interviewed, he won't answer any questions. No, it's right here. It's literally like we went through this already. So what the media will do when they spread their fake news is they'll just pretend that he didn't answer all these questions. And then they'll say, oh, he's refused to comment, or he won't tell, or he won't do anything. But now that it's built, where are the retractions? Yeah. Right? I read all those smear articles in BuzzFeed and the Daily Beast and stuff on you, and they should be here right now taking pictures and saying, okay, we got it wrong this time. But what they'll do is they'll pretend this isn't here. They'll pretend like it didn't happen. And a week from now, they'll write another fake smear article.
And I don't know if you guys even saw it, or we posted a video. It was back in January. When we made the transition from the GoFundMe to We Build the Wall, every single local network, even Fox News, CNN, ABC, every single network ran a coordinated hit on us saying all the money was being refunded. Word for word, the same script. We compiled probably like 40 different news anchors reading the exact same script all across the USA, from local networks to big networks, and it caused mass confusion because everyone thought all the money was being refunded. They thought it was all shut down, and it really messed up this whole thing. It stopped us from raising money. And it's because these networks are for open borders. Right. They want open borders. And I just couldn't believe that a coordinated attack from all the local networks ran a story, word for word, exact same script, that all the money was refunded, which was completely false.
For all the jokes that the liberal elite make in New York and even in London, where I'm from, about the rubes out in the real country, for all the inbred jokes they make, the reason that they don't see beyond their filters is because they all stick together. It's like an incestuous club of them. They marry each other's sisters, right? It's like you look at the politics nowadays, and you guys come at it from absolutely nowhere, from cold turkey. You guys weren't trained in this stuff. Nobody taught you how to go viral on YouTube or anything like that. You built it yourselves. And I want to can we take questions from people? If anybody wants to ask any questions, I think that would be good. But just before we get to the questions, I want to ask each of you which your favorite either medium or platform is, and just a quick explainer for people as to why. Let's start with Brian. Do you have a preferred digital media platform?
Well, initially, before this GoFundMe, I had a network of 10 million fans. 10 million fans who liked my page. And Facebook completely deleted me.
Whoa.
I lost 10 million fans, and ultimately Facebook was my favorite because you could reach so many people, and there's a lot of people on there, and it had high engagement rates. And then I was blacklisted. I'm now on Twitter, which I think all of them are now they're clamping down on conservatives. They're shadow banning. I think these guys can probably answer better than me about which one's their favorite. I don't like any of them.
Mitch?
Well, there's definitely pros and cons to every single one, and people that want to get into doing, conservative-minded social media, I tell them to pick a medium that sort of speaks to them, right? So people that can take great photos, obviously Instagram's going to be better, or if you like memes, people, they all reach a different audience. The audience that you reach on Facebook is very different than people that religiously use Twitter or Instagram. So to me, it sort of depends on who you're trying to target. For me, I'm really interested in reaching the younger audience, and that's who is mostly using mostly using Instagram. So for me, I love Instagram. However, I got a lot of problems with Instagram because of the censorship and because of the issues happening, to conservatives around that. So it's hard for me to say which one's my favorite, but based on who uses it, I would say Instagram.
Mike?
Yeah, for me, Twitter definitely is my favorite because that's where the real news tastemakers are, the cultural tastemakers, the highest IQ people are. There's no question that's the best one or my favorite one.
Jonathan?
For me personally, it depends. In my view of citizen journalism, I kind of see it almost as in a way, almost a new punk rock. Back then, music artists couldn't get deals, so they made their own record labels. Right now, it's like, why work for the corporate media? You could be your own media outlet. So honestly, I'm not kissing ass, but human events, I do like listening to watching you guys. Twitter for sure, as it gets there faster. Instagram, if it's memes, him, and if it's actually stuff in LA or San Francisco, fuck, or typical liberal. But for me, I believe that anything on social media gets out there faster, and to me, I like looking all different places.
Just as they were saying, 100% Instagram if you're trying to reach the younger generation. And when it comes down to it, those are the next voters. So that's why I'm focused on them, and hopefully we can make a bigger difference than we already are.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For me, it's YouTube and Instagram are my favorites. I think just the ability to talk directly to the people is the most important thing right now. It's like we said before, the way to circumvent the media. And when it comes to these issues, I was trying to mention this before. I think the way to defeat this, the remedy for the fake news, is to talk to your apolitical friends, the people who aren't the most politically involved, don't really follow it, but they're rational and normal. If we can talk to them and have some honest conversations, I don't think they realize how high the political stakes are right now. So if we can talk to them about certain issues, for example, the wall, we can really talk about trafficking, human smuggling, the weapons, the drugs that come across. And if we don't, we're going to forfeit the narrative, and we're going to have to end up defending, why is Donald Trump not a racist? Why is the wall not racist? And that's a huge problem, because now we're not even talking about the actual issues. We're not even having a real debate. So I like Instagram and YouTube and Twitter for all that. And I think that's just my advice to everybody would be to engage your apolitical friends, get them involved, ask some basic questions. And once they agree with you a little bit, they're not going to be progressive enough for the mob, and that's where we win.
I think we should take some questions. Gentleman at the microphone.
Hi. First of all, thanks for being great Americans.
What about me?
My question for the panel is, the left likes to tease conservatives who complain about censorship by saying, well, you love capitalism so much, go build your own platform. Well, if the left controls all the platforms and you have no way to extract consumers, how can you possibly start a conservative or at least independent social media platform?
This is about monopoly power, effectively. Is it legitimate for even some on the right to say, well, if you don't like Twitter, go build your own? Who wants to take it?
Yeah, and the fundamental premise of the question, which libertarian think tanks, funded by Google, by the way, so consider most of the people making that argument are being paid to do so, they lie, because if 5 years ago when YouTube was coming up, if they had said, oh, we might change our mind and delete all your videos and ban you, people wouldn't have posted their stuff on YouTube. All of these social media companies didn't create their own content. They lied. They committed fraud. They said, come give us 10,000 hours of your life to build up the platforms, and we'll protect your free speech. And then they changed the deal. It's bait and switch. It's fraud. So when people make that argument, oh, build your own tech monopoly, well, what about the lies? Should the tech companies who lied to people and got them to create the content, should those people be able to sue for fraud and back wages for all that work? And absolutely they should.
To touch on what Mike just said, they are private companies, but they're advertising themselves as public platforms. Mike Zuckerberg said he wants Facebook to be a place for everybody. Well, why is it not that way? Why are we having problems with it? So,
and it's also important to remember that for us, maybe if we all got completely deplatformed and created our own website, our audience might follow us over there. But if you're a person starting out in street journalism or just getting involved in the movement, it's really hard to attract people to your website or to your private platform, whatever it would be. And on top of that, what makes it really difficult is Google still controls the App Store as well. So there are some companies that maybe could compete with these big platforms, but if they're not featured in the App Stores, you're only talking about desktop traffic now, and there really isn't a chance to take off. So yeah, the idea of build your own, it's kind of, I think, out of our reach at this point.
Did you mention Parler right there?
I didn't mention Parler, no.
So for those that don't know, there is a free speech equivalent of Twitter called Parler, P-A-R-L-E-R. Don't do the one that's O-R, because I hear that's a teen dating app. But P-A-R-L-E, I hear. P-A-R-L-E-R. And they're trying to recreate an environment that Twitter originally had, a more sort of free speech environment. And you've got to give kudos to them. They're trying. I think they have about 600,000 users at the moment. So it's not completely beyond reach. But like you said, there's a lot of man hours and a lot of money that have to go into something like that. Should we take the next question, or did you, Jonathan? I saw you.
I think to the issue of recreating something that's already been created. These companies, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, they were the initial ones. And so they had the mad rush of this social media rush of everyone in the United States and around the world going in and signing up. They were the first ones. They technically have the monopoly on it. You're not going to go and pull everyone away from Facebook. It's impossible. You can't go and create a duplicate Facebook. It'll never happen. You can't do a duplicate Twitter. You can model it after it, but they're not the first. They got all those signups and all those members and people who are
And all your data.
all the data as well, because they were the first ones. They were the first ones to the race. They have the monopoly on it, and frankly, I think that's why it should be illegal for them to censor, because they do have the monopoly on it. And if they're going to, it seems like antitrust laws are being violated. A lot of people pay money to build up their followings with ads, and that's where it becomes illegal with antitrust laws.
It's a really great point. I think a lot of people are starting to look into that now. The FCC, the FEC, people like what's the senator's name who's drafting the law?
Josh Hawley.
Josh Hawley, to look into this. Finally something is happening. It was great that the White House had so many of the influencers there to talk about our mutual concerns, because these are not just what we love doing and what, in defense of our nations and our sovereignties. They're also a way of living. A lot of us make livelihoods off of this. Lady at the front, please.
Hello, my name is Mary Yoli Moore. I'm with Christian television station KSCU-TV. And I would just like to ask you, I enjoy watching the underground conservative media, social media, like Q and on and on and on. What do you think about these underground social medias? Are they really real?
I think that was a Q question. Was it a Q question? Is Q real, guys?
No, are all these underground social medias real, or should I just ignore them? They're fun to listen to. They kind of
Right. The funny stuff on in like the conspiracy things and all that.
Do you repeat the question?
The question is, how real are those things, or is it just some people talking to themselves?
I think there's some truth to it, but it kind of is on us to do the research ourselves. So if there is something posted online that does, kind of tickle your fancy a little bit, something that you want to look at more into, I would keep the research legitimate, and then anything you discover after that point is true. I would, I make it a habit of mine to not take anything at face value. I always research and try to back up my facts. So if you hear something in a couple different places, doesn't necessarily mean it's true. It's still kind of on you to do the research.
I think if it has anything to do with Hillary and body bags, though, it's probably true.
Yeah.
Mike, I know you have opinions on that.
Opinions on what?
On the Q and the underground stuff.
I don't answer the question ever, because I'm happy that people believe in something, and I'm happy that people are talking and thinking, and I view it more as it's their club, and I don't ever want to tell anybody that I don't like their club or agree with their club.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm not a Q guy, by the way, for the records. Lady at the front, please.
Thank you all for being so brave to step up and to have a conservative platform, considering everything. As you all may know, we have another brave little boy that's even been here today, Benton Stevens. He ran his own lemonade stands and then faced severe backlash from, even celebrities calling him Little Hitler, referring to him as if he's a Nazi. So my question for you guys would be, what would you say to younger generations, even generations of our future? What would you say? What would you tell them when they're nervous and scared about being bullied by the left, by adults, by grown adults? What would you guys say? How would you guys encourage these kids to stand up and to have a conservative platform?
Yeah, well, great question. I think all of us just kind of see this as our day-to-day, and so we don't actually consider the jump anymore, and the jump we all had to make to put ourselves out there, and that the next generation is going to have to make and take the heat for doing it as well. What are your guys' experiences with that? And as the lady asked, what would you say to the next generation?
I would say, for me, I have a more blunt approach. But my mental mentality is keep your head high and your middle finger higher, and don't apologize for your views. If the left attacks you, and why can't you defend yourself? As constitutionally conservative, we fight for the Second Amendment and for free speech. And to silence ourselves, you're almost letting them win by you not defending this American country. This is an amazing place. And you have to look almost as the founding fathers. They were just farmers going against the greatest military of all time. And just for you to be silenced, you're almost eliminating the way. You're giving up before even fighting. Don't do that. You have so much more to give and so much more to fight than we can do. We're just the first step. You need to carry it on, keep going on, and keep going on. Because you guys, after us, you're all the hope we have.
Another point. Another point about the left bullying us and anybody that doesn't agree with their narrative. Their power only comes from their perception of power. They are not that big and bad beast that everybody sees them as. That's just how they make themselves look. We are much stronger, we are much bigger, and we are much better than them.
And I just want to add to that. I think now's the time to step up, to be honest. In 2015, 2016, it wasn't the most popular thing to be a Trump supporter. But if you treat it like a stock and you look at the projection, I would say buy it now. You could have bought it earlier. It's going to get better and better for us as Trump supporters. It's only get easier and easier. And the people that we're up against, they're power hungry. They're satanic in some ways. Very satanic, very satanic. And so I just think it's important to kind of step up and speak out. The more we step up and speak out, the harder it is for them to knock us down one by one, the stronger we become. So just now's the time to double down.
Also, I think to if you want to defeat their argument, sympathize with them, hear them out, and as crazy as that may seem, and then use facts to fire back and have an honest discussion and use everything that you know about those facts and let them hear you out. I mean, sometimes they're not going to hear you out, but if you can defeat them with facts and sympathize with them, sometimes they'll give in, or at least you can have a cordial conversation and a public debate.
I use their freakouts as fuel, and I know, Mike, I think you feel the same way, right? Let them expend all that energy in our direction.
Yeah, the number one tip I have for people, especially young people, is because of the way the narrative will be shaped. So if right now somebody threw a drink on my face, I would just say, take a picture, call the police, and I would just take it, because if I went and grabbed that person, the only thing the media would ever show is, oh, look at Mike, he's a big savage guy, he's attacking people, beating them up. So you have to be above the fray all the time. You have to have the high ground. But take pictures, call the police. I've had over 7 people arrested. We've had 5 guilty pleas. So if you spit on somebody, that's criminal assault. This old model of the conservative where you just let them attack you. No. You take the pictures, you call the police. There's been times where, in one case, a woman hit someone and the police were there and they didn't want to take action because apparently if you're a liberal woman, you're allowed to hit a man. And we just communicated to them that this is not the way the country works. Is if you commit violence, you've got to call the police. And that's what we need to do is we win on the law, we win on culture, we win on arguments, and we have to make sure we win on the optics.
Midge, tell us about, it's even more different being a young woman in this space, right, with the abuse that you get. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I get bullied all the time, and it's crazy because I feel like they talk about how you shouldn't bully women, you shouldn't whatever. I feel like a lot of times I get it worse because they don't expect you to speak up. So I get a lot of hate on my page. It's unbelievable how many people come at you, but when you kind of let them reveal themselves, they expose themselves in their hatred very quickly. A troll will come on my account and start talking trash, and then immediately they reveal themselves, usually as racist or bigots themselves. So I say sort of like welcome it, let the haters hate, and let them expose themselves. And also just to the lady's question, I think it gets easier, and you just have to keep speaking up because at first it seems scary to actually voice your opinions, but it does get easier the more that you do it. And I just encourage everyone, don't sit back on this one. You have to speak up and you have to confront these people.
I have some breaking news right now.
I was just about to say, go ahead, Brian, read it out.
As well. Supreme Court paves the way for President Trump administration to use military funds for the border wall. On Fox. That came through 6 minutes ago.
Big news. Last question goes to the lovely lady in the front.
Just curious, how many of you in this wonderful panel were homeschooled? Any of you homeschooled?
Interesting question. Any homeschools here?
Any of you Judeo-Christian schooled? Okay,
Any
how many of
Judeo-Christian
you...
I went to Catholic school.
Okay, that's Christian. How many of you actually graduated from a public high school? Well, I give you great kudos as a teacher myself. I'm thrilled that you have the guts and the courage, the fortitude, the perseverance, and actually the God-given blessings to do what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I don't think we could have ended on a better note than that, unless anybody has anything else to add. I think that's a wrap. I want to thank our hosts and our panelists. Give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Where's the spoon?
The Symposium at the Wall, sponsored by Rebuild the Wall, Numbers USA,
Thank you, everyone,
Citizens of the American
All
Republic,
you guys, they're great.
Black Americans for a Better Future,
Very
Angel
cool, very
Families,
cool.
Citizens
Rock and roll.
United, and Human Events. We'll return to the Symposium at the Wall after this short break.
This is a show of hands question, and hold them up for a moment so people can see. Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
The drug cartels are controlling who crosses the border. They make a lot of money smuggling drugs. They make a lot of money smuggling people.
Right. She voted twice against bills that would have provided more resources for these migrants in these facilities, and then she goes down to the facility and say they're not getting the right resources.
The cartel and crime gangs across Latin America and beyond are focused on getting people and drugs to the United States.
We return to the Symposium at the Wall, Cartels, Trafficking, and Asylum.
For you guys who don't know me, I go by Joey Salads on the internet, Joey Saladino. I'm a YouTuber with 10 million followers. I get over 1 billion views a year. And I'm putting my public image on the line because I believe it is important for us to fight for what we know is right. Now, I would like to introduce you to someone who also believes in those very same principles. He had a 36-0 boxing record before finishing his career at 37-2. He was formerly ranked number 11 in the world by the IBA and defeated a former number 1 contender to win the Mexican heavyweight. I give you David Nino Rodriguez, and he's going to tell us why we need to get in the fight and stay in the fight.
That was a pretty good introduction. I like Michael Buffer better. But listen, a lot of people thought I was going to come up here and announce that I was going to run for Congress. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Politics is a dirty, dirty game. I believe it's worse than boxing. I've taken some serious hits in boxing. But I'll tell you what, I think the political world is much worse. Can I see a show of hands here that people that are from El Paso? A lot of you are familiar with Veronica Escobar, huh? What a travesty. So as much as I would like to run for Congress, instead of doing that, I feel like I should keep my fighting in the ring. I've been out for 4 years, but I'm going to make a return by the end of the year. And, you know, I've been feeling the momentum is coming, and I just feel like the crickets are getting too loud. And I don't know if I'm too young to feel this old or if I'm just too old to feel this young. I don't know which one it is, but definitely going for it again. I'm going to be entering the ring probably at the end of this year. Hey, you never know. We could do it here at the wall. I'll fight the biggest, baddest Mexican over there. I'm going to tell you about firsthand experiences that I know that walls work. I'm a resident from El Paso. I grew up here. My whole entire life, I used to frequent Juarez all the time, whether it was to party in high school or go there for training. I was there constantly. I grew up over there, half time in Juarez and half the time in El Paso. I love Juarez. I love Ciudad Juarez. It's a great city. The people there are amazing. Not everyone's bad. They're not these evil people they make them out to be. They're great families over there in Juarez. They're just trying to get by. They're poverty-stricken. A lot of the kids that are growing up there, they go to crime because they have no other outlet. They have no other way. They're uneducated. They're raised by gangs, and they only know one thing, and that's crime. And I'd like to say I was fortunate to be around them growing up. When I was training over there, I used to go there for sparring, for the right type of conditioning and all that. There's some really tough, like Trump said, there's some bad hombres over there. And it took a lot of good training to get over there. So when I would go there, I was around the criminal element a lot. And before this wall was put up, there was a wall that was put up in the George Bush era during 2006. And that was, you never heard no fuss about it or any complaints about that wall. That was built in 2006. George Bush put that up, and it was finished, I believe, in the Obama administration. Before that wall was put up, the pre-wall, I remember the stories that I would hear about people from Juarez, the kids, you know, anywhere from teenagers to 20-something years old, running across the Rio Grande, going to the street right here that runs parallel to Mexico. It's called Paisano. They would put 2x4s in the street with nails. Cars would go over it, boom, knock out their tires, and then they would carjack them and take everything in there, and sometimes murder the people. Now, that was a real deal thing that was happening in El Paso. And they'd run right back over, and they'd come back they'd go right back to Juarez. That was called a hit or a score. And I knew these guys. And that's not the only thing they would do. They would also go to the Santa Fe train right here and rob the containers. And everyone just conveniently forgets about this. Once they built that wall, that stopped. That's how I know walls work. Can I get a round of applause for that, please? Another thing, you know, I feel that when I say walls work, you know, I really mean that. Not everybody had the chance to grow up in Juarez and in El Paso. To me, it was a luxury. I loved it. I love both cities. And like I said, I want to make this very clear because I've had threats. I've been bullied. And I know that's hard to believe a boxer gets bullied. But there's people here, it's very hard to grow up and turn into a Trump supporter in El Paso, Texas. The people here are very malicious. They've treated me very badly. They vandalized my properties. I've had death threats. This is serious business. So if I can do this, if I can come out and be a Trump supporter in my hometown of El Paso that's, 90% liberal, then none of you should be silenced. None of you should be silenced. If like I said, I've taken some brutal hits in boxing, but there's no hits like I'm taking right now in El Paso. If anybody wants to ask me some questions, I'm going to go ahead and close up here. Like I said, it's an honor to talk to you all. I want to thank Brian, Chris Kovac, Brian Koflich, Andy, Steve Bannon, everybody who's given me the pleasure to come up here and speak to you all. It's amazing. I'm going to keep it short. But like I said, just remember this, if you take anything away from this, don't allow yourself to be bullied by these people. They have no ground to stand on. Nothing. Nothing. And we're much bigger and stronger. We're just being silenced. At least I'm not silenced, and I'll never be silenced. So I would like to thank everybody for letting me come up here and talk. You got any questions? I know you got one or two. You good?
Covered it good.
Huh?
You covered everything.
I guess I covered everything. Did I cover everything? All right. Well, I'd like to say one more thing. Thank you for letting me tell my story. Thank you y muchas gracias. Coming from a Mexican-American Trump supporter. Okay, let's get that straight. God bless America. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nino. Tomorrow, that wraps up today's program, and day 3 is tomorrow. We've got a half a day of programming. It starts at 8:45 a.m. local time, 10:45 a.m. Eastern time. If you're viewing this on the internet or on TV and you want to come to the program, show up here at 8:45. There's a little security check, so maybe get here a little early. 8:30 or so, but it's going to be great. We'll be opening tomorrow with a great panel of a current member of Congress, former member of Congress, talking about why Congress isn't getting the job done. We'll be talking about the actual build of this wall, all kinds of really good content tomorrow. So don't hesitate to show up and enjoy the program. And like I said, if you're watching online and you want to be here in person, we'd love to have you. Take care. Have a great evening.
The Symposium at the Wall, sponsored by We Build the Wall, Numbers USA, Citizens of the American Republic, Black Americans for a Better Future, Angel Families, Citizens United, and Human Events. We'll return to the Symposium at the Wall after this short break.